Hello everyone, my name is Mugisha. Welcome to this CNBC Africa Special report broadcast as we speak to Rwanda's Minister of Youth here, Rosemary Mbabazi, as she touches base with the country's 7-year national transformation strategy and where the Ministry of Youth stands to tap into this particular demographic. Of course, we also understand that Rwanda has about 19 years old as an average age for the country. Biggest number there, but also we need to understand how does this get to contribute significantly to the country's economy. On this special with Minister Rosemary Mbabazi. Joining us tonight, thank you very much for creating time, ma'am.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Very interesting to speak to you because the first time we met, you were actually talking about how you used to manage a hotel back at, I think it was used to be called Meridier, and creating job, opportunities for the youth, young people, and how interesting that conversation went on. I can put a sign and check on it that it was rather very interesting. But let's talk about things that are happening right here at the Kigali Convention Center. Youth Connect, and we're talking about how we can connect the youth for more opportunities across the continent, not just in Rwanda, but across the continent. What should we look at necessarily or as of immediate effect to ensure these kind of conversations don't end just in these seminars that we go to, in these auditoriums, but also go out there to create these opportunities?
Thank you very much, CNBC, for having me, and I'm so delighted to be back again to discuss with you in this particular discussions about Youth Connect, connecting youth for continental transformation. The discussion all about with the young people is about transforming Africa. As we've been discussing, we want to see the young people, even themselves, already we can see the commitment from them, that the development of Africa will not wait for anyone else but them. This means more ownership than ever before. And this is the right time for them to act, especially when our leadership from the African Union, recently in Kigali, they signed the Continental Free Trade Area. And the reason of the topic, even the theme of discussion, is to see how the young people takes advantage of the Continental Free Trade Area, all these regulations that they are putting in place, all these laws that are enabling countries to increase more intra-trade within African countries, to make it easy to trade and cross-border and do business with each other. And looking beyond the boundaries that were created during colonial time, that could remain as a geographical boundaries, but you want really something that is going to be seamless and smooth transaction between the young people in one country, in another country. Mm-hmm. So the discussion mostly is about how do we tap into opportunities that we have as a continent by the young people. So present in the discussion, we also have policymakers who are the ministers. We have almost 9 ministers from different countries of Africa. And we are having also a steering committee that is going to be discussing. We've listened to the young people. What is our role in this? What are we supposed to do? And this is a partnership.
Of course, you've spoken about the political boundaries that came in with the colonial times. But today we're not really limited by these boundaries, but maybe limited by the minds and how we can actually create a conversation around that. Because you're looking at an era where technology has taken much of today's happenings. If you're talking about markets, if you're talking about business, e-commerce has grown so fast, but not only for Africa as a continent, but for the whole world. Now let's talk about youth in Rwanda in specific. What are some of the projects that the Ministry of Youth has actually in place to support these young entrepreneurs that are actually opening up doors for Rwanda to do business with the world?
That's a good question, especially to focus. What are we prioritizing? We have strategic sectors that we have prioritized, but we first have to deal with the mindset of the young people. The mindset of I can do. The mindset that I don't have to wait for someone else to do it for me. The mindset that says, with my skill, with my knowledge, I can start small and grow big, but with my own understanding that I have a big vision, but I start gradually. I grow with the vision. So the sectors we're looking at, Rwanda is moving from agrarian to ICT, knowledge-based economy, but we still have a big number of population which is still relying on agriculture as a source of employment. So we are looking at young people also in being involved into agribusiness, in agriculture, the whole value chain of agriculture. This has a lot. We have young people in agribusiness, and there are almost now 4,000 graduates that are completed in the whole value chain, right from internship in agriculture sector, production. Then we have those ones into agro-processing and production. We're also having those in transportation. We're also having those that are using ICT, information communication, to connect them to the market. So it's a whole bunch, the whole group is into different value chains but linked to each other. And they have formed themselves into Rwanda Young Agribusiness Forum, like Rwandan Youth in Agribusiness, and they have created a forum for themselves to support each other, mentor each other, but also go as one group to negotiate for loans, to negotiate for markets, like one group altogether. So one of the areas that we are focusing on is agribusiness, which is a backbone of our country. We also have young people in ICT, innovators. We have also created labs, like K-Lab and others, that are acting as an incubation where we can nurture what they can do best in that ICT sector, where we could also supporting them in terms of creating jobs out of the ICT sector. As you said, it has opened up windows and doors that have been locked before. ICT is an enabler for all sectors to thrive. We are looking at as well tourism. We have a MICE strategy, a strategy that attracts investment into the country, but mostly in tourism and hospitality sector. And as a strategy for our country, we are looking at how do young people benefit from this. A number of hotels are growing up. A number of meetings, conference halls, conference tourism is also growing up in Rwanda. We have also natural beauties that we are already exporting or showcasing as things that the tourists could visit and see. These are areas that young people are also tapping into and creating their own jobs. We have one young man, it's a network of them, but one example that I can show, just one mind what they can do. There's a young man in the northern part of Rwanda, Kinigi location, where there is the mountain gorillas, the famous silverbacks. This young man started a company that could showcase the beauty of Rwanda in our culture. And he also provides services for the tourists who are climbing the mountain up, to give them the sleeping bags, to cook for them, to carry these luggages that are carrying while trekking on the mountains. And sometimes they spend a night over there. They just take a site there and put their camp and put everything together. It becomes a home immediately. So taking care of those basics. And this young man also takes tourists in the rural areas to show them how we grind, how we dance in a local traditional way, how we cook, how we, preservation of food. And this has created 200 jobs for young people. Just one, jobs. Yes, one company.
I was going to call that an SME, but I know that small and medium enterprises normally don't even have more than 20 people employed. But again, allow me to look at... medium somehow. But let's look at it from that perspective, of course, of small and medium enterprises. We do know that analysts back and forth repeatedly talk about that particular conversation, saying that these employ up to 70% of the Africans in the formal sector, the SMEs. But these are also the same companies that fight so hard with regulations because they're not in their favor. And of course, the conversation on access to finance. As a government, as the Minister of Youth, kindly just help me understand, with of course the growing number of startups every day and SMEs in the country, what are the priorities right now to ensure growth for these small and medium enterprises?
That calls in why we have Youth Connect. Youth Connect is kind of a platform that links young people, small and medium, micro, small and medium, firms that we would call micro and SMEs. MSMEs. Yes, MSMEs, that you would, they're the ones actually even in Rwanda generating more than 85% of jobs. The large firms create 0.5% of jobs. So the majority of the jobs that we get is from micro MSMEs generally. And what we would say, why the Youth Connect was set up 6 years ago and was launched by our president, Paul Kagame in 2012. It is a platform that connects, it's kind of a homegrown solution, trying to solve the challenge that the young people meet every day. One of them is what you said about access to finance. Secondly, access to markets. The third is access to skills. The fourth is access to information and mentorship. You know, this network, mentorship, how did you make it? Can I do it the same way you did it? Or I can leapfrog. I don't need to go through the challenges you made, because you had your laboratory, you managed to do it, and I'm learning from you. These kind of networks help young people. As leaders, we cannot go and speak to the young people that you create jobs and when you have not done it yourself. So you always want to go with someone, a role model, a success story at their age, what they managed to do. So Youth Connect is kind of a platform that links the gaps, that creates the bridge between the gaps. The young people here and access to information that was lacking, access to finance that was an issue, access to all the opportunities that we're talking about. And so far since its inception, we have managed to discuss with young people, like engaging them, the dialogue, depending on the topic that we want to discuss. We have managed to get almost 4 million young Rwandans to be engaged. In access to finance, we have supported almost 540. These have created 6,000 jobs so far. And this network of 540 are in different parts of the country. They are not even from the city. Most of them are in the rural areas, because our budgets go down to the districts, triple down again to the sectors. So the young people in those rural areas have a lot of opportunities. And these jobs are where they are created, in their cooperatives. Secondly, because we have an issue of access to finance, banks always think the young people are not profitable, they are risky. And we have seen some banks that say young people are not risky. It's not a risk business. And actually, their non-performing loans is lower than people who we think were performing better in paying back. And we were also shocked to say, oh, we thought that was not the case. But we are so glad to hear some good news that young people are bankable. They are not so much into risk, and instead they pay back the loans, and they're not performing badly in non-performing loans. So the government has also set up, through a business development fund, a window for youth and women. And government knows young people have no collaterals that is required by the bank, has no land, has no car, has no house to take as a mortgage or as a collateral. Yeah. And so what the government does, it has provided, government decided to be the collateral for the young people. So the government of Rwanda decided to put up 75%. They guarantee the young people with a good project, a bankable project, a good idea, to 75%. But they have to look for 25%. That means there will be ownership, because there is nothing for free always. You have to struggle, work hard. This 25% comes from their own initial savings, group saving. They put together mutual saving together so that they can raise 25%, and the government guarantees 75%. That is through a business development fund, BDF.
Allow us to take a quick break on this CNBC Africa Special. More on the other side. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, my name is Mugisha, and we're still with Minister Rosemary Mbabazi as she touches base with some of the critical contributions that the ministry has had in the past 1 year of creation here in Rwanda, and of course going to the Youth Connect Africa that has been set up to actually connect a lot of youth across the continent to job creation and supporting entrepreneurs on the same. This is a CNBC Africa Special report. Allow me to ask you, the Youth Connect has been around for about six years. Of course, kicked off by the president of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame. But what are some of the challenges, of course, and other than the access to finance, skills, and mentorship? What are some other, rather, challenges that the youth in Rwanda have been facing time after time, and how have you as the government stepped in to ensure that there is a gradual shift in the paradigm?
Some of them are the ones that we mentioned. We always discuss with them. So I always want to say what they say, not what I think.
No.
So what they say always is that there's lack of trust. The banks or adults always don't trust that we can do it. You can have a great idea, but they think, oh, I think a company in another continent can do it better. And that's where the young people say, but we can do it. Why don't you trust us? What the government has done in that field is to allow young people to participate. For example, we have young people that have already created a solution with Volkswagen company that is established in Rwanda to manufacture the Osomiti Lab. It's already in there. They had no much experience, but they had enthusiasm and the will and the skills to do it. And we provide them platform. You compete. If you make it, fine, you're ready to go. That's how you have to start. At least you have to start somewhere. Another issue that the young people had was to say they always ask about experience.
Nice one, because I was about
that
to
was.
jump to
I
that.
always know what you're going to say next. Because you're a young person.
It's because you speak to young people.
Yes,
and,
so I know always
part
in
of
the
that
mind what is
category.
there.
Yeah.
They always say, you know, we always, even when they made the president recently, His Excellency, the president, they asked him, you know, we are glad this time we're not being asked for experience, because in the previous years, they would have asked, every time we go to apply for anything, they ask for experience. And where will you get experience when you have not got experience and everybody wants to ask us experience? So where do we get it? So the government of Rwanda sat down and decided, let's look at the issue and say, what do we do about experience issue? So it's now in the labor law, employment law. It says anyone for the first entry in public or private, no experience is required.
All right.
And so the experience will be required as you grow up the ladder. You know, when you go to a director level, you have people that you're going to manage. So you need management skills, you need team building, you need leadership. So there's a certain level of at least the experience that you need to manage that position, to take up that responsibility. And so the only requirement we require as you go up the ladder. But the first entry into the first job entry into the government there's no requirement of experience. So that was well accepted and agreed and applauded by the young people. I can give an example from the ministry. Our ministry is a new ministry. It's just 1 year old.
Yeah.
We turned 1 year in August, and towards the end of August, actually September, and we are recruiting barely from scratch new teams. And 90% of our team
I think I should get my suit ready.
No, stay there. You're doing a great job here.
Right.
And 90% of the young people that are employed in the ministry have no experience. It was the first time they are doing their first work. It is their first experience encounter in the labor market. And it was very competitive. So we chose the best brains. So 10% are the only people like us and others who have been there for quite some years. And this is motivating. You have to speak and talk the walk. You can't say it when your minister alone doesn't do it. That's what the young people in Youth Connect were talking about. Can we get out of speaking only and give us practically what have you done and what can we do? But the good thing they say, both of us, even us young people, what have we done? Even you government, what have you done? So they always want concrete, practical examples.
Yeah, because they say actions speak better than words.
Yes.
But I just wanted to ask you another question about pretty much yourself and the work that you do. What keeps you up at night with all this ministry that you lead and the young Rwandans? What are the few things that keep you up at night? You can't sleep because something is not going right.
That's a good question. You're going, the real issues.
Yeah. Because we need to know.
Yeah, sometimes something that keeps you awake, and sometimes even you wake up and start writing somewhere.
Yeah.
Is the future of the young people, especially your responsibility.
Sure.
And starting with the children that you have at home. Sometimes when you have the children at home, you look at them and that's the image of others. Sometimes I feel the young people of this generation, sometimes they take things like an entitlement. And all these programs we are putting in place, government to support them, sometimes they take it for granted. And you look at the generation that gave back the liberation struggles and the current leadership really thinking so much about young people. For them, they grew up without no much support of that kind.
Sure.
And so you always wonder, how will our young people be in the future? Supposing this was not there, how would they manage? So you always want to see not them taking for granted, but really giving it the real value it deserves. And when you discuss with the young people, it's some of them, not all of them, some of them are really understanding, some others are like, government is not doing this and that. Government is not, like some of the meetings that we had here, they were saying, I think the adults should retire. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I think adults should retire and go, you know.
But we have a retirement age, no?
Yes, we do have.
Is it being respected?
Yes, it is. It is respected. But it's like even the 50s, early 60s, they should retire. So you just listen to that kind of discussion and you feel how many presidents are there? It's one position. How many probably ministers? It's like 30. How many members of parliament? Like 80.
But don't you think this particularly comes from a frustration from the youth to actually, trying to get into the job market or change something?
But I just feel the youth, because the number is huge.
All right.
Compared to it's like a narrow, the numbers are huge for the youth.
Starting off, I told you we have about 200 million youth
yes.
on the continent.
And how many jobs are there? Even the public itself is not expanding.
No.
It's not expanding. Even the large firms that employs 500 plus, they don't employ every day.
No.
That's why we are focusing on, instead of looking the challenges, how do you turn? It depends on which angle. What is your perception about the challenge? If you have a problem, how do you see that? Do you see solutions in that or lamentation? It depends on which angle or the perception that you have. The what keeps me awake is to see young people, challenges will be there always. They will be there forever. Even the next generation will have their own challenges. The current generation has their own challenge. The previous generation had their own challenges. So every generation has its own challenges. But how do you handle challenges? You start with a positive thinking. A positive mindset moves things, moves mountains.
Right.
If you keep on thinking, I think I can make it, let me try. You take one step, 99 will come from the support that will come from every corner. But when the young people sit and just lament, they're not going for retirement and all that. But even if they go, all of you not to occupy that place.
Sure.
What can you do? Leadership is not only in that place. Leadership is even in your own community. How are you managing peers? How are you managing the little that you have at your proximity, at your disposal? Or how are you managing? You don't have to have a position to be a minister to influence others. You don't have to be a prefect in class or a sector leader to do something. You can do it within your means and influence change. And when we're discussing with young people, we always tell them, by the way, people with great ideas, money run after them. Yes.
That's true.
Even tomorrow, we're going to be awarding innovations. And we have money. Who should we give it to? Partners have brought together money and we're like, who has great ideas? We are running after them. Let's do a boot camp for Africa. And we award Youth Connect Africa awards for the first time. If he had no idea, no one would run after him.
All right.
But the one without ideas will run after money. Do you get that? You're also a young man.
Yes, I am getting all of that.
Yes.
Maybe as we wrap up this conversation, Honorable Minister, allow me to take this now from a whole perspective of the Youth Connect Africa that has been happening for 6 years, just as you mentioned. And of course, what some of the key takeaways, because we've had plenary sessions since Monday and today, and we're having more tomorrow. But what do you see as the biggest takeaway for innovators, for startup entrepreneurs, for small and medium enterprises, for MSMEs, for regulators, basically the whole ecosystem? What is the biggest takeaway from this year's Youth Connect Africa?
As you recall, last year I had key takeaways. One of them was the launch of the hub that we did this Monday. And you're also expanding Youth Connect network. It has also expanded, almost doubled the number. But for this, we are looking for more, about 3 things. More policy orientation. The discussion, the conversation going on, it should influence our policies as ministers and ministries that we lead. The countries where you're coming from, we have done an analysis and we found some of the youth policies are as old as 10 years old. 10 years, it cannot influence or change anything. Instead, the youth are moving faster and quicker than the policy itself. Secondly, is programs. We should do programs tailored to the needs of the youth with the discussion of young people. So this should influence the programs in the respective countries, how they program and make things happen using the experience of young people and involving young people to plan for young people. The third is partnership. Why we saw everybody here, we have the development partners, we have ministries and governments, we have the civil society, we have the private sector that creates jobs, we have the media that makes publicity and makes it happen, we have also the young people. So we have the right people on the table. How do you create partnership? How do you leverage in everyone's areas of expertise? How do we work together? How do we have one common vision and direction for the development of Africa? So program, partnership, and policy influence.
All right, thank you for joining us. Allow us to leave it right there for this edition of CNBC Africa Special Report. We had a clear picture on what and why the Youth Connect was set up, and also looking into the one-year run for the Ministry of Youth. Of course, that was MyICT before, but got to be changed into Ministry of Youth just to specifically focus on how to majorly tap into that youth potential and seeing a significant contribution to the country's economy. My name is Michael Mugisha. For more, you can join us on Twitter at CNBC Africa or my personal handle at Galwero4. Thank you for joining us from the entire team. It's bye for now.